Wanderer here, and welcome to Ivil Say Orway Update. I'm going to have some notes today because I got a lot of ground to cover and I don't want to forget things. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. I'm shooting this on my phone because I have my camera, but I haven't learned to use it yet. And I want to keep the info and the videos flowing for you. And hopefully you're appreciating my uptick in the number of videos I'm doing. So today's topic, we're going to start out talking about Time Magazine's confession for the deep state. Dun dun dun! I'm sorry I had to do that. Once again, Old Sage Wanderer, it gets proven correct. I don't like being right. When I'm predicting mayhem and trouble, I don't like to be found to be correct and right. But I have to say, once again, they've proven me correct. I've told you for 3 years on this channel that everything was going on in that Time Magazine article about how they EepDay the game against EepDay. And I was telling you from the get-go it was rigged against him. I was telling you there is no help coming from the white hats. And those of you who are sitting around hoping on March 20th, when are you all ever going to learn? When are you all going to learn? You can't trust this. You can't trust the Q man. I'm sorry, you can't trust the cumin. The spice, cumin. You can't trust it. Anyway, yeah, they basically told what I told you was going to happen, or was happening. They told you that's how they did it. It was a deep state combined with corporate America, at the leaders of our corporations, working together with the anarchists and nihilists and the violent mob, as it were, that they used as a tool and a weapon, along with taking advantage of the current health crisis enveloping the world. And they used that to make their move. So, yeah, I mean, everyone's covered this. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to get caught up because Time Magazine just laid it all out. One thing about the devil is that he always seems to have to brag about what he got away with. Case in point, one O.J. Simpson was acquitted of capital murder in California. I think, well, they don't have the death penalty, so I guess it was just, his threat was life imprisonment. But O.J. Simpson, a famous football player and former actor, was charged with the vicious and bloody slaying of his estranged wife and her new boyfriend on the front steps entryway into his former home in a rich neighborhood of the rich and famous in California, in L.A. And so when he got acquitted, the first thing he did was write a book. And the book was literally titled, "If I Did It, This Is How I Would Have Done It." And since you can't be tried twice for the same crime once you've been acquitted, and he felt safe, he pretty much wrote a confessional in the form of a book, which is what we have totally experienced here with this Time Magazine article. So, with all of the disinformation going on, sorry. Boy, allergies, I guess. With all the disinformation going around, excuse me, with all the lies floating from every direction, who you gonna trust? Who you gonna trust? Howdy, 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 who you gonna trust? So a lot of you trust me. So I could be taken down at any minute. I'm trying to branch out, but at the same time, I'm trying to improve the quality of my videos. How does this one look? I got some lights. I'm still shooting on my phone. My camera, I haven't gotten savvy with it yet, but soon you'll be seeing my first shot with my new camera. Not just my new camera phone. I have a new Sony camera. So at any rate, I want to offer you a list of YouTube sources that I watch and explain to you. These are people that are still on YouTube for now, and they're not among the unbade. And so they're available to you as of the writing of this, or the shooting of this video. And so let's start at the top here with my #1 favorite show on YouTube. It's every Sunday at 3 p.m. on the Modern Survivalist channel. These links will be in the description. The Modern Survivalist channel. This guy is an Argentinian, right? But he speaks English well, and he's a great host and a counter and balance to Matt Bracken. And so Matt Bracken used to be on AJ's show, and sometimes he still shows up over there on that channel that is no longer. You have to go straight to their website to find them, for the most part, unless you want to play whack-a-mole with General Shepard. But at any rate, so Bracken is on this guy's show, Modern Survivalist channel, every week. And I think it's the only place to get a steady source of Matt Bracken. So who is Matt Bracken? Matt Bracken is a former, I think he might be a Marine. I'm not sure which branch he served in. I'm thinking he's a Marine. I seem to recall in some videos seeing him wear an Eagle, Globe, and Anchor medallion, or having one flying on a flag behind him at some point. So I think he's a former Marine, and he's definitely a salty combat vet who's been around the block. And I would say Matt's probably close to my age or slightly younger. He may be between me and AJ in age. I hate to guess a guy's age, but he's got some gray hair. And a number of years ago, he started writing books, novels, sort of things. And these books that he writes in novel form kind of tell the story of what's happening right now. And in many ways, Matt has predicted how things would go down, but more about how things might go down from here on out. The stuff he wrote, when he wrote his books, I think they started already underway. And I think his first book is called Enemies, Both Foreign and Domestic. And so in my Ivil Say Orway update intro for a long time, I kind of mention him when I'm doing my code words, my Wolverine fake code words. Like the chair's against the wall and John has a long mustache, and I'll say Matt Bracken has a gold chain. But and I think he watches the show because he stopped wearing the gold chain. I think my Tainted Vote music video made the circles in some of the YouTube channels, because the opening line in the rap on that song is "Don't wee on my head and tell me that it's raining." And I have heard almost like a talking point of people who were talking about what happened in November in this country. And they're using that analogy. I had heard Hannity say it correctly, which is the original quote is, "Don't, pee on my leg and try to convince me that it's just raining, that it's raining." And so he said it correctly. But I guess in Texas, we turned it around to not pee on your head. And then I softened it up and made it PG, or made it G-rated by saying we. I don't know. I hate to use any kind of discolorful language, although sometimes I do. And when I'm with my people at home, I do a lot. I'll admit that. I got honky-tonk mouth sometimes, but I got a great filter because I'm a preacher's kid. If you slipped up when you were a kid, you got whooped for that. Anyway, back to who I trust. What is Matt Bracken's show about with the Modern Survivalist? They're kind of wargaming the next 10 years on what it might look like, and they look at a lot of topics. They talk about cryptocurrency versus gold versus silver. They talk about alternate energy sources like solar. They talk about bartering and networking and how to survive what's coming. They really kind of war game how the common man might survive what's coming. And they don't really talk about the conflict itself. They talk about the effect the conflict might have on us ordinary folk. And they talk a lot about the peaceful separation and the mass exodus of conservatives and Christians from the blue states to the red states that's going on. So it's a great source for intel and information. And that's Matt Bracken on the Modern Survivalist channel, Sunday at 3 p.m., I believe Central Time, 3 p.m., and that's a live, usually hour and a half. I've seen him go 2 hours before. Second one, and I'm going to tell you why I recommend him, and I've criticized him, I think, on this channel, or at least maybe in the comments section when people bring him up, and that's Black Scout Survival. And the only reason that I criticize him is that he often does videos about what's going on, and he's not the most informed guy, and his discernment on what information is legit and what information is, hearsay, or, whether I'm going to start calling I can't even say that word in EepDay, but the conspiracy theorist word, we're going to start calling that the CT. Sometimes I think he gets his info from some CT people and he presents it like it's really happening, but that's just because he's trying to figure it out like anybody else. But the reason I still recommend him, but not for intel or analysis of our current situation, but for his expert knowledge of military kits, first aid kits, hardware, that kind of thing. I kind of like Bear Independent for the same reasons and dislike him for some of the same reasons. I cringe when Bear Independent preaches. You know, I understand the kind of religion he follows, and I have some friends that do that. And you know, I put him up there with what's the other guy that's kind of, but he's more of a preacher. Is it something Viking? Anyway, he's a homesteader. But and I didn't put any homesteader channels on here, but there's some that I watch. We recently lost a homesteader. He ended up having a stroke, and we lost that channel because he died. But let's move on this list. But the Black Scout Survival is also kind of wargaming, but he's more about what we do next. And he's talking about organizing, and I think that's important. And he is what the old Marine, my dad, the old Marine, would have called a squared away Marine. I also think he might be a former Marine. He's definitely a vet of the sandbox, and he still has sand in his pockets, if you know what I mean. So he's fresh from back over there pretty good. And he's somebody that might end up being some kind of leader at some point. But, you know, all of the real potential leaders, all of the real potential things that the left fear, those men who I kind of count myself in loosely in, more of a Ben Franklin character than anything else for myself. I see myself in that role. That we're waiting. We're just waiting for it to become real. Right now, there's just a lot of threats. Right now, they're threatening us. Right now, they're vilifying us. Right now, they're going after anybody that's doing anything, but we're intelligently not doing anything. Remember the battle cry of the original Revolutionary War, and one of the battles in particular, and it might have been the Battle of Bunker Hill, when they said, "Don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes." And just knowing how to keep your powder dry and hold and wait until the right time. I'm a warrior, but I've been in few fights because I do everything I can to avoid them, not unlike the Jack Reacher character who says, look, okay, I've given you every opportunity to walk away, and you need to know that this was your idea, that you wanted this, that you want this. And so the left is telling us they want this. They want it, and we just have to wait until they make their move. But, you know, old Sage is a counterpuncher. I never start things. My son was a notorious brawler through school, and the reason is he was 1.5 feet taller than all the other kids in his class from day one, and stayed that way until the very end of high school, till he wasn't just a giant. My son was, my first wife, bless her heart, she gave birth to a giant. I don't know. Well, they were 2 cesarean sections, both my kids, because they were just too big. They were bigger than 6-month-olds when they were born. 10-pounders. My son was almost 11 pounds. My daughter was right at 10. So, big kids. But, sorry, I digress. Let's get back to my list here. So another one is Tactical Rifleman channel, and I'll have a link in the description on that guy as well. And the Tactical Rifle guy, I think he's a former Ranger, but his experience, I think he goes back, he did his first tour in the first Gulf War. So this guy's maybe a little bit younger than me, but he just came back from his last tour of duty in Iraq or Afghanistan. I forget which one. Like, he's been active up until recently. He's an expert on military hardware. He's an expert on rigging your gear. Go to him for battle belt consultations and body armor discussions. And he recently just shot up that FRAS armor, which is the flexible rifle rated armor from Safe Life armor, body armor. And he tested that and shot it up really good, like everybody else does. And then he out demolition the Demolition Ranch. And spoiler alert, but you still want to go see it. He finishes that one by setting it on fire with a flamethrower. He just flamethrowers the vest and the gel dummy on it, and he's like, "Look, bought this good body armor, but we still have flamethrowers." I'm sorry, I'm kind of a fanboy of that guy's channel. He can be he's got some tude. He's got a tude. That's cool though, if you're okay with that. Another guy that's very similar, that's also a gun guy. He's more of a civilian guy. I'm not sure he ever was a military guy, but he's kind of an expert on the civilian shooting scene. And he's called NutNfancy. And he's got some channels and some backup channels. And he's got great videos on individual firearms and how you rig your gear. And he's always innovating, and he's always kind of trying to create new stuff. And he shoots all the time, and he's just really an active shooter. And that's not the right word. He's active in the realm of shooting, and his videos are very good. While staying in the gun guy group, we'll have to talk about guns and gadgets. I think everybody who's into the Second Amendment deal right now is into guns and gadgets. And the guy over there, he started as it being about guns and gadgets, but now it's subtitled Your Second Amendment Source. So if you want to know what's going on the Second Amendment front and the battle against our legal and constitutional right to keep and bear arms of all sorts, the AR and the AK are the modern day muskets. And that is exactly what we were supposed to be allowed to possess via the Second Amendment and the spirit of that law. And the guns and gadget guy is tuned in, got his thumb on the pulse of all of the legislation on the local and state and national level. Another gun guy, Second Amendment and gun testing guy, is the Iraqi vet 88. Once again, I think that's what he is. He's 88 or 888. I don't know. They have alternate channels, so you got to find these guys, and when you find them, you'll catch them on different channels. And then there's the Liberty Doll on the lighter side. Liberty Doll is, I like her. I think she's pretty, and I'm crushing on her a little bit. Okay, her and Lisa Haven, I don't know. They're two different women that fit into the types of women I find attractive. So hey, if somebody's going to give me the information I want and need, and they're also easy on the eyes, why not? And I like Liberty Doll's personality. She's funny. She's engaging. If I was 15 years younger, I'd chase her. Not really, because I'm not doing that right now. At any rate, Liberty Doll, she's a good Second Amendment. She talks a lot about that, but she talks about everything. She's kind of a Tim Pool person with a gun edge. Tim Pool's got a gun edge now. You might check out Tim Pool, but no, he's liberal, slightly left of center, although he's coming our way. He used to be anti-gun, and now he's a gun guy. Amazing what a year of rioting and civil unrest will do to somebody. Another solid, hardcore shooting instructor cat is Warrior Poet Society. Now, trust him for the warrior, ignore him for the poet. And I told him that to myself on his channel. I left him a message and went, look, you're all warrior, no poet. Another guy with sand in his pockets. Okay, you know what I mean? He just got back from over yonder. He learned a lot in the last 20 years, that cat. And you can trust him for all kinds of instruction. He does advanced gun self-defense tutorials and things like that on his channel, as well as going out to Clint Smith at Thunder Ranch's place in Eastern Oregon. That's another channel that if you can find him. I don't know if Clint Smith at Thunder Ranch is still up on the internet. I hope he is. And if you're in the Pacific Northwest, you couldn't get any better training than at Thunder Ranch in Eastern Oregon. Used to be in Texas. He started his he had a place down in Texas, and I've never got a chance to train with them. I always wanted to. So Warrior Poet Society, and then more on the political side, Elijah Schafer from Blaze TV. You can trust him, I think, as well, or even more than you can trust me. I consider any information coming from Elijah Schafer to be 100% truth. And now, he's center right. He's definitely a Christian. He's definitely, he's a Bible-believing, active Christian, I'm sure. He sounds like it anyway. But he's the guy to give you all the information on the enemy. The information on the enemy coming from Elijah Schafer is the most reliable of any place on the internet. And he may end up being, right now they haven't arrested him, but he was inside the Capitol building as a journalist with Blaze TV press credentials. But they still are looking at him and considering charging him with the other people who were inside the building. And so y'all pray for Elijah Schafer. But he is your expert on Antifa and BLM and Democrat intel into their plans and what they're doing, especially on a street level. So I have one caveat for Warrior Poet Society. He is law enforcement biased. So if, let's say, High Impact, Brian at High Impact, is on our side and he's this side of anti-cop, then exactly the opposite of the scale then would be Warrior Poet, because he's definitely a friend of the police, and he's a SWAT guy and a SWAT trainer. I mean, I don't know if he's actually been in law enforcement, but those are the circles he hangs in. He's an operator. He's a former military operator. So who do you just say no to? Well, you got to say no to AJ. Watch him, right? But don't trust him, because I've caught him. And, I don't believe you ever caught me deceiving you, because I've never deceived you unless it was to deceive you about how you could find me. So I'm deceptive about my identity, my location. Less nowadays that I'm so far behind friendly lines. If you come down here and start something in Oklahoma, you probably won't make it back to where you came from without a set of handcuffs on you and looking out the window from inside an Oklahoma jail, because they don't tolerate outside interference in the country area I live in. And if you survive it, you'll probably end up in an Oklahoma jail. So don't come messing with Old Sage Wanderer. I will call the Popo, because their good guys are on our side here. Our county sheriff has got our back. So anyway, but AJ, nonetheless, I've caught him in deception. So although I think he may end up being a big leader in what's about to happen, at this point, he operates with disinformation intentionally, and it's for a purpose, and a purpose only known to him and his cohorts. So this is why I can't give him the Sage Wanderer blue check mark. All these other guys, I'm giving you the Sage Wanderer check of approval. I have to say the same thing about Lisa Haven. I got a crush on her, a little bit crush on her. Just innocent. I know she's married, so I got to be careful. I like her, but not enough to go to hell for. So I'm on the Jesus team, especially lately. But her information ranges from cutting edge and on the money to you should have researched that a little more. That's kind of hard to swallow stuff. And so I got to put her on the just say no list. Watch her, but don't take anything she says as gospel unless you double check it. Okay, fair enough, right? And you should double check everybody. Double check me. I have a great fan base of people who double checked me and went, oh, or people who ridiculed me and then later went, oh, that guy on the internet, he was right. So go ahead, double check me. I don't care, because I'm right. I'm just right. I'm right now. I've been right. I was right about the cumin. I was right about the collaboration that's been released in the Time magazine thing. And unfortunately, I'm going to be right about the stuff that's coming in the future. And I hate it. I hate that I'm right, but I feel like that God's called me to warn you. God's called me to warn you. And there are people out there now that are sitting on a pile of food and supplies because I warned them 3 yeyears ago, and now they've had 3 years to prepare. Sound off in the comments section. I know you're out there, and I know you're regular viewers. So let's move on to the next thing. Oh, I got to throw another person under the bus. This is a do not listen to him under any circumstances, and this guy is wrong more than he's right. I'm sure he's a Democrat operative trying to, trying to feed you disinformation, or, he's what cumin is to the conspiracy world, Yankee Marshall is to the gun world. And he's feeding you a line, giving you false information. He'll probably give people information when the stuff gets really bad, to the point where they will get arrested because they followed something he said. Don't trust him. Don't go around him with a 10-foot pole. Of everyone on the internet who's supposed to be on our side, in the gun world especially, there's only one guy I genuinely despise, and that's the Yankee Marshal. There. Or maybe he'll make a video about Old Sage Wanderer and I can bleed off some of his poor misinformed people and shoot them over to the Iraqi vet or shoot them over to NutNfancy or to Warrior Poet where they can get some real information. That guy will convince you to get your hand blowed off. He says stuff that's just opposed to all my shooting training. I don't even think the guy could shoot his way out of a paper bag. In fact, you want to shoot some IDPA, Yankee Marshal, and we'll have a competition. We'll set up some scenarios and shoot through it, and we'll see who scores best. I challenge you to a shooting match, so shut up. It'd be fun anyway, even if I lost. Hey, there's no such thing as bad publicity. So, anyway, let's talk now about what will happen in the Ivil Say Orway. And I could do a separate video on this, but this is kind of a double episode. Because I wanted to cover some ground here. It's been a while since I made a video, and some of this stuff is fairly important that we get to. So, some things that they are currently doing to us that's just going to get worse. And the warfare they're using is, it's like, what do they call it? Fourth column warfare? I don't know. That's a military term. Remember, I'm just from a military family. I didn't actually attend any military service. So, at any rate, unless you count 18 years of boot camp under the old Marine, because my dad was a DI. DI turned Pentecostal preacher. And if you're telling people you're a Marine and you don't know what a DI is, stolen valor. It's a drill instructor. Technically, the Marine was a small arms firearms instructor, an expert range instructor is what he did. He taught people to shoot. Taught me to shoot. So, things they'll do to us, though, long before your guns will ever come out of the closet or even become involved, I think. And I think if they do go through the House and the Senate and pass this draconian gun registration and firearms tax law that they're proposing, and a ban on assault weapons, that there will be states like the one I live in right now that'll just go, yeah, I don't think so, you silly feds. We have a constitution, you can't do that. You know, pack sand. We're not going to help you, and if you come down here and hurt any of our people, we're going to arrest you on sight. And I'm sure that Texas and Oklahoma sheriffs are quite ready to do that. Take my word for it. I've heard them say it with their own mouths. They're ready to do that. So if you work for the federal government and you want to come down behind enemy lines down here and seize firearms, expect to be arrested on sight by the lawful constables of our community. I ain't in charge. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. So the things that they'll do to us, though, they may pass the laws, and instead of going head on they may go head on to you if you live in Portland. If you live in Portland and you don't hand your guns over, they'll fight you. If you live in LA, they'll fight you. If you live in Chicago or in any of those states that have those big blue cities in them, you're probably in for a fight. And they won't mess with Texas and Oklahoma and Louisiana and Missouri and places that have anti-red flag laws and constitutional carry and stuff like that. So they're not going to go where they know they ain't wanted. And so the things they might do to us, they are doing to us. They're going to continue to do it to us. They've done these things to AJ already. They've done these things to anybody who was in Washington, D.C. already, along with putting them under investigation. And in the case of 130 some odd number of them, they've been arrested. And so, but the things that they can do is they can use the national banks that you do business with and put pressure on them, political pressure, customer pressure, federal pressure, and convince them to ban you from using their banking system. So if you have a loan with these people, they could call your loan in and cancel it and force you to get another loan to pay them off. They could cancel your bank account and refund you all your money and tell you to go elsewhere. They could, if you're a suspect, work with the federal government like the Bank of America just did in handing over information on anybody who was in Washington, D.C. who used one of their credit cards. Let that sink in for a minute. One of the biggest banks in the United States, Bank of America, one of the biggest American banks in history. I used to bank with them. I wised up to this before it happened. God allows me to see slightly into the future in some ways, or maybe it's just intellectually being able to dissect what I see. But you should listen. I'm usually right. So Bank of America just turned over the records without a warrant. They went, hey, get them, boys. Here you go. Here's everything you need. Sick them. So we know what side they're on. And they're going to continue to side with whatever government that the leftist will send, because there's a per Time Magazine's own article, there is this coalition between corporations and the leftist half of our government, and the street soldiers who have been causing this mayhem, and even the doctors and nurses and scientists who are pushing the Ovid-K. So they could do that to us. And so here's the thing. If you have money in a national bank, I recommend you move it. If you're doing business with these people already, ditch them before they can do something to you and mess with you. So, and here's some national banks that are just, there's more than this. This is just the big ones, like U.S. Bank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase. I personally won't do business with any of these people now because I know what side they're on. And so you want to do business with local banks. The bank I bank with, it only has 5 or 6 branches just right around where I live. It's locally owned. It's what you'd call a state or a community bank. And I think if you live in a red state and you bank with a community bank, then you have a better than even chance that they might resist any attacks that might come against your banking. And they're not sided necessarily with the enemy, as far as I know at this point, but those level of banking will also be infiltrated at some point if they have to be outlawed or if they have to be bought out by the big banks. But right now, you can still use... an example of this is that in the Pacific Northwest, it was still federally illegal for pot growers who were legal under state law and were openly operating dispensaries. They were unable to process their cash into banks. And in Colorado, for instance, when that was happening, there was a lot of crime and robbery, and they had to put in really burglar-proof safes and time locks, and they had to become their own bank because no bank would do business with them, and they had all of this cash. But in the Pacific Northwest, they had community and state banks and local banks who sided with the state government on the issue of medical marijuana, and later on with legalized marijuana, recreational, and they were able to take that money and put it in the bank and make bank drops. But it was still illegal federally. The feds wouldn't let them put the money in the bank. They'd seize it, right? Because they're drug dealers. Our country's so screwed up. Our best hope is some kind of peaceful separation. So you can expect this in insurance, credit cards, federal tax liens, property seizures. All of this stuff could be used against us. They're going to use the IRS as a weapon, and they've already done it. So you need to make preparations now to be ready for what's coming. God preserve us all through what's coming.
Wolverine!